Pattaya City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
Okay, well, I think our speaker this week needs very little introduction. He's a guy who does an awful lot of work for this club, finding speakers, which is a bit of a thankless task when you're trying to fill 52 slots a year. And I think he does extremely well. So apart from the fact of welcoming him as a speaker, he just wants another certificate to cover up another damn patch on the wall, I've been told. But Ren, please stand up and thank you for all your work. And just remember, when it comes to question time, one question at a time, please. And we have time, you can ask a second one, please. Over to you.
Thank you, Les. Les actually said something nice about me.
Don't get used to it.
Yes, I'm not feeling well.
Yeah, I think that's true. All right, well, good day. Welcome. We have big numbers here today, so that's great. I'm here because I failed in my job of booking speakers, and I was stuck with me. Because Tarina Simmons was supposed to give a talk on 21 ways to make a man happy, but she got visa issues and she's stuck in Cambodia for a while. So understanding, I am Australian, so I do tend to talk a little fast. So I'm just going to try and slow down a little. If you think I'm really talking too fast, do this.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't work, get on the table and dance.
And kind of funny too.
Yeah. And Big Ron doesn't need a mic to disturb me. So here, let's start with this question of why Thailand has changed so much, so quickly. It's like we blinked, right? Who here has been here for 50 years? I know one guy's been here for 50 years, right? Put your hand up, right? 50 years. Unbelievable. Who here first came, another gentleman. Who here first came here 40 years ago? Wow. 30. 30 years ago. 20? 15, that's me, 15, right? 10 or less, right? Interesting. Now, even if you've been here for only 10 years, it's like, whoa, I blinked and things changed. So why do you think? People say, economics, or they say, somebody said China's influence. So I'm just going to look briefly at one thing which has undoubtedly changed unbelievably rapidly. Thai waistlines, right? We blinked and Thai's got that. How did this happen? Well, what do you think? The march of time, it's been a headlong plunge. This is actually an old photo from the club. Judith, from a Christmas show in about 2010 or something. This is what Thai kids used to look like, right? And now it's not unusual for them to look like this.
You're a bad guy.
And here's a photo.
That's wrong.
Do you think that's before he lost weight? Do you think this is from 30 years ago or like from last year, this year? So how did this happen? Western food, right? KFC, this is unbelievable. This is like a dessert cone with deep fried chicken in and a sweet sauce. Who comes up with these things? Or is it like Coke, right? Sugar, right? Massive amounts of sugar. Well, here's one of the biggest drivers, if not the biggest driver of change and fat in Thailand. This is fertility rates of women. Right, the top one is the Philippines. Japan's down the bottom. It's been low for a long time. And this is Thailand. In the 60s, women were having 6.1 children in their fertile period. Now, look, they're down at the rate of Japan. It's an exponential plunge.
I've talked to Kundichai about that.
Yeah, let's blame Kunichai. Yeah, exactly. But condoms, I mean, Michai's had an unbelievable effect. And this is actually birth rates per 10,000, and it follows exactly the same trend. So let's go back to this. 1970, right? Women were having pretty much still 6 children in their per family, right? So if you were here like back then, you know, there was a very different demographic. 1980. Now I want you to think of this in terms of the proportion of 25-year-olds. So when you're 25, you're like a true adult. Your brain fully develops by the age of 25. So look at this. This is 10 years. 10 years. And it's gone, basically cut by a third in 10 years. Now, when I got here in 2005, focusing on 25-year-olds, this is how many children per woman they were having. Now, half. 15 years, it's gone down by a half. So think of this in terms of 25-year-olds next year, 2020. Can you imagine if right now Thai women had kept breeding at the rate they were effectively when I got here, in terms of 25-year-olds, there would right now be twice as many 25-year-olds in Thailand. See, you think about the huge impact that is, right? That is a massive, massive change in character. Right? You want to know what? So, and now it's at the rate of Japan. And the Thai authorities are worried, just like they are in Japan. How are we going to construct an economy and look after the old people when we're only breeding at 1.44 children per woman? It's below the replacement rate, and there's all sorts of worries. Now, so you want to know why Thais are fat now? Because they can be, right? You're up country and you're feeding 1.5 children as distinct from 6. There's like 4 times as much food per kid. Similarly, if you're on a wage, you've got only feeding 1.5 mouths as distinct from 6 mouths. Why are they fat? Because they can be. Now, this is another problem in Thailand. The group eating culture. Thais think we are crazy because we eat by ourselves. It's like there must be something psychologically wrong with us. But it's been proven that the more people you eat with, the more you eat. If you eat by yourself, as distinct from eating with 10 people or more, you will eat over twice as much. Right? So this is one of the reasons Thais are going to have an astronomical rate of diabetes, the group eating culture. By the way, other animals do this too. So if you put a chicken in a cage, give it all the food it wants, it will get satiated and go, stop. You put another chicken next to it that's still hungry, it will start eating, right? So the second chicken starts eating. The chicken goes back and starts eating again. Because we think about the competition between the species, but you're actually more in a competition with members of your own species. Because you eat the same food, you have the same sexual partner selection, right? I mean, why do you think there's war between tribes? So this is a big problem in Thailand, the group eating culture, which encourages overeating and eating more frequently. Also, at least they're having healthy rice, right? This is khao suai, the beautiful rice. You know, not brown rice, Castle white, beautiful rice. You know, average sort of serving. Contrast it with this sort of Western food, right? Now, both of these, ultimately, you know, the sugar, you know, ultimately both of them are turned into blood sugar, right? They're carbs and they turn into blood sugar. So, what do you think? How much is this one? How many teaspoons do you think blood sugar there is in that?
2.
3.
10. Right? 10. But it's not so bad, right? Well, in that plate of white rice, there is 20 teaspoons of blood sugar. Right? Twice as many as that muffin. So you want to know another reason? And it's a high glycemic index too, it's like 80. So this is one of the reasons why the diabetes outlook for moving into the future for Thailand looks really bad. In fact, you can see here deaths from diabetes, and already, you know, there's 2.7 in the US, it's 4.1% of deaths in Thailand are from diabetes. Now, I'm going to mention another thing that we're getting onto how Thais think differently from us. This is, of course, the Indian number system that we use, and on top is the Thai one. So, let me take you back. I used to go to this bar, and I used to play like pool there every night. I'd buy, you know, a couple of drinks, soda water, beer, or whatever. And I was like there every night, I'd bring some friends with me. And I discovered that the owner thought I was a bad customer. I was there every night, right? But one guy, a tourist who was there one night, who spent 1,000 baht, oh, he was a great customer. So this was like, how could she think like this, right? How could she think that I was a bad customer? And then I got it. Thais don't do mental arithmetic. Most of us have been there, right? It'll be, it's 80 plus 20 plus 30, right? And we'll say, yeah, it's 130. And the Thais will get out the calculator and go, oh, you're right. Yeah. Right? Most of us have had that experience, right? They don't do mental maths. So this woman literally never occurred to her to go, well, let's see, you're spending about 200 baht a night, about 30 days in a month, that's 6,000 baht, times that by 12 months, that's 72,000 baht. Oh my God, this customer is a god. But it never occurred to her to do the mental maths. Right. All right, so we're going to specifically look at this question of how we, as Pharangs, right, as people from a Western Judaic Christian heritage background, think of things as distinct from how Thais think of things with their Theravedic Buddhist background. So, who here thinks they can name the 10 Commandments? It's actually pretty tricky to name all 10. Very few people can do it, because I've been practicing. So, it's, thou shalt have no other God before me, worship the God, do not take the Lord's name in vain, honour the Sabbath, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's wife or his stuff, and honour thy mother and thy father.
That's mine.
Alright? Now, the thing about this is unbelievably black and white, right? It doesn't say, oh, sometimes it's okay to steal, sometimes it's okay to commit adultery. It's black and white. And this is how we, as Pharangs, tend to think of morality in these black and white terms, right? Now, a wonderfully a behavioural economist called Dan Ariely, he was really bothered by the amount of cheating and malfeasance that was going on Wall Street. So he wanted to do like a test on cheating and how he could encourage or discourage cheating. So he had this test, and it involved self-assessment. You know, you could actually, you do the test, and then they put up the answers and you'd mark your own sheet. And then they'd say, well, you know, how many, just tear it up and go and tell us how many you got right. Tell us how many you got right, and then we'll just give you the money for each right answer you had. So the amount of cheating tended to go up, right, when they were self-reporting. But here's the interesting thing. When they asked people before they did the test, can you name the 10 Commandments, right? Write down it basically wiped out cheating. Because people thought, wow, black and white, right? Thou shalt not. Even though nobody who did the test could actually name the 10 Commandments. So this is how we think of things, very, very black and white. And recently, I heard a little bit of an interview with him, and they did a talk, and they did a test with, okay, we're not going to give you the money, we're going to give it to a charity instead. We're going to give it to hand, say. So do you think that increased or decreased the amount of cheating? Increased. It increased the amount of cheating. Because people go, oh yes, I'm cheating, but it's in a good cause, right? So any time, I'll just move on, I only got so much time. Now, this is a Theravedic Buddhist country. And Theravada means the wisdom of the elders. It's the oldest form of Buddhism, most like what Buddha actually taught. Under Theravadic Buddhism, for instance, the only true Buddhists are actually monks, because they're the only ones that can, escape the wheel of samsara. Now, Buddhism does not have the 10 Commandments. It has Buddha's eightfold path. Right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration, right understanding. Now, this is very, very grey compared to thou shalt not, right? So, what is right speech? Okay? Well, if I lie, but it gets me money to look after my poor sick buffalo up in Isan, then, lying is that's the right thing to do, right? If I lie and it stops my boyfriend getting upset, lying is the right thing to do. And I'm sure I'm not the only person in this room who has conveyed to a Thai person that I want the truth, and they're like, why would you want the truth? Don't you want to hear something that makes you feel good, right? And guys, think about this. If you've been in a marriage and your wife says, does this clothing make me look fat? Maybe you're going into a grey answer there, right? So that sort of Thai way is like, And the other thing that we have a very, very different idea about is marriage, right? Marriage, the Western idea of marriage goes back to Genesis, and Adam got ripped out and was made into a woman, and so she's like flesh of his flesh. Therefore a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. So when the father of the bride walks down the aisle and he gives the bride away. He gives her away. She's yours now, she's not mine. And we tend to think of marriage as the start of a new family, right? It's a new family. Thais have no idea about any of this, okay? No idea whatsoever. They don't even know you won't think of it that way. They have not left their family behind. In a very real sense, they are still married to their parents. So many a guy in Australia has been married to a Thai woman happily for years, and she'll suddenly say, I'm going back to the village. And he's going, what? No, I'm going back to the village. My parents need me, I'm going back. It's not like a discussion, right? And they say, but we're married. We're married. Yeah. No, I'm going back to the village. In a very real sense, they're still married to their parents. It's not the start of a new family marrying you. Another tradition we have in the West that has no parallel in the East whatsoever is the tradition of courtly or romantic love. It's a really bizarre thing. It's like, if you follow your heart, your true love, everything will work out. Even if you're going with somebody poor, you know, true love is the way to go, your children will be more happy, you know, follow your heart. Again, obviously fall in love, right? They do. But they don't necessarily think that, you know, if I follow my heart, this is going to work out to be the best of all possible worlds. Because, let's face it, and they have a point. Romantic love doesn't last. Even if you get married, it tends to fade, be replaced by respect and cherishing and good things. Cross fingers. So they really, really have a point. So for instance, I asked this woman to move in with me, wonderful woman, but 2 weeks before she was due to move in with me, she met the rich Austrian. Who's Austrian here? Christian. Wasn't you, was it? She met a rich Austrian. Within like a week, she's in Austria because this rich Austrian is going to send who knows how much money up country to her child and parents and stuff. Now, of course, that, you know, bruised my heart badly, but I wasn't upset with it because I understand that's how Asia and Thailand work, right? Family comes first. Really love you, Ren? Bye. So, now, this is a good question. What part of this guy's going to go to hell? And the angels are saying, what part of thou shalt not commit adultery do you not understand? Did you not understand? Well, in the case of Thais, none of it. They don't have a thou shalt not commit adultery background. So you can see this was a survey done about 2015, I think, and you'll see the country where the greatest percentage of married adults confesses to having an affair is Thailand. It's like 13% above France. How the hell did that happen? And that's probably an underestimate, I would say. This might be a joke, but somebody told me this who actually believed it, that there was a survey done of married Thai women in Bangkok, and it said that 95% of married women in Bangkok had cheated on their husbands. And the Thai women they told this to laughed and said, I don't think it'd just be 95%. So they don't understand thou shalt not commit adultery. They understand thou shalt not upset their husband by getting found out, of course, or their wives. And of course, there's a sort of institutionalized infidelity. You know, you have a me annoy or lesser wife or something for some Thai guys. Now, this represents the wheel of samsara, the wheel of born, suffering, die, born, suffering, die, born, suffering, die. The wheel of reincarnation. And this is what Thais believe in. So out of that, in your past life, of course, comes karma. Good or bad karma. Now, our tradition in the West, with the Judeo-Christian thing, is one life and the consequences of that. You either go to heaven or hell. So your actions in this life are all there is. And that's what counts. But Thais believe you carry a weight of good or bad karma. So if you're lying in the street in your own urine, starving, that's your karma. If you're the king or something, that's your karma. But of course you can go up and down. Obviously your actions in this life have an effect. So you can come up and down in terms of karma in your lifetime. Now I believe that this is one of the results of this belief in karma, right? Now we believe that how we drive is what's going to determine whether we survive this drive. And of course, the idiots around us, okay? But try to drive. But Thais believe, yeah, but no matter how carefully you drive, it's not just about your actions now. It's about the weight of karma in the past. So if you have good karma, Buddha will look after you and you won't have an accident. Even if you drive well, if you've got bad karma, then you're going to have an accident. Oh, I have this theory that, making good in Thailand is called tam bud, which means make good, which here means going and supporting the monks, right? Doesn't mean helping poor people or anything. So generally, I have a theory if they could make driving appear to be a form of tam bud, then the Thais would drive better, right? Like emphasise that behind that tinted windscreen there could be a monk. And if they drive badly, they could be responsible for killing or injuring a monk. All right, now this is the why, a wonderful Thai tradition. But in here, this actually, because of karma, Thais, one of the things I had to wrap my head around when I came to Thailand is that Thailand is incredibly hierarchical, right? Australia is very flat, but Thailand, unbelievably hierarchical. They actually believe that they could place everybody in Thailand in a hierarchy from top to bottom, right? Up the tops would be the monks and the king and stuff. So everybody believes in a hierarchy. That doesn't mean they accept your version of what the hierarchy is and where they are. So this is an example of doing the why, right? Now, this is the older woman, so she's presumed to be higher up the hierarchy than the younger woman, which is why the older woman has the lower hands and the younger woman has her hands higher. The higher you put up your hand is the more respect you are. So if it was a monk, you'd probably put your hands right up here. And if it was the king, you might start up here and then even raise your hands even higher, because it's the king, right? So, here is my very serious advice to all of you. Do not do the why. You won't understand where to do it, how to do it, how slowly to bow, where to hold your hands. And Thais know this, right? They don't expect you to do the why. The only time I do the why is like some cute little kid, right? One of the things I like in Thailand, I can smile at children and interact with them, and I danced with them, Friday night. And people don't, you're smiling at my child, where's my mobile phone? I'm just going to phone the nearest police station, right? It's one of the wonderful things about Thailand. Don't get me wrong, stranger danger is a horrible thing, but the actual truth is it's 99% of interference in children is done by intimates, not strangers. So if a child, so I'll interact with the child, I'll say, oh, nah, and do, which means cute. And the parents will say, yes, she's cute, isn't she? And then they encourage the child to do the why to me. Then I'll do the why back to the child, right? And because that's just helping train them. And occasionally I've done it when I've left something behind, and instead of pocketing it, the Thai person saved for me, I come back, then I'll do the why, right? Thank you so much. But generally, do not do the why. Now, when Thais meet for the first time, okay? So say you've got girlfriends or boyfriends, and there's a party, and they form a circle and they're meeting, right? And they're all smiling and they're whying and stuff. You think, wow, they're all getting on so well. But on the inside, it's probably more accurately depicted like this. They're trying to find out who top dog is, right? They're actually smiling, going, is this person above me or below me, right? Was this woman ever in a bar, right? Was she ever work in a bar? If she did, she's below me, right? So they're actually trying to work out where they fit hierarchically in with the other people around them. Oh, the other thing, this idea of hierarchy extends to the body, okay? So the head is high and the feet are low, okay? Very important to understand this. Even if she's your girlfriend, do not touch her on the head in public, right? Big no-no. There should be a sign at airports. Do not touch Thais on the head in public, head ever, unless they're there. So again, now, if you're from a Judaic Christian background, or you're raised like I was, the dirtiest part of the body is like below the navel and above mid-thigh, right? That's the dirty part of the body. But Thais do not see it that way. The dirtiest part of the body is the foot. So you never point at anybody with your foot. I had a Thai lady come around and I used the back of my heel to close the fridge door. She went, ugh! Because to her, it was like I'd used my my ass to close the fridge door. Big Ron was telling me of an incident where somebody had dropped a Thai baht note and it was blowing in the wind. And they, and so Big Ron had a really good idea. I'll stop this blowing away. Image of the king on the Thai baht note. Right? It's the Thai equivalent of using it to wipe your ass. Right? Your filthy foot has just put its hand on the king. Better to let it blow away. This is a sign in one of the old Thai toilets at level with the floor that I saw in a photograph. It says, Kana me lang tao nai hong nam. Do not wash your feet in the toilet. Your ass is okay, but do not wash your feet in the toilet because they're dirty. So these are the highest people in Thailand. These are the monks. Now, the hierarchical nature of Thailand is embedded in the language. It's embedded in how I refer to myself and how I refer to other people. So normally I would just say kun, meaning you, but I would never call a monk kun. They're tan, right? They're like tan, like master, high. Similarly, so this is, and notice of course they lower themselves before the monks and stuff. Now, which non-Thais, this says, Ka Wara Puta Jao. I'm thinking, who has never heard that term? Lots of people should now be putting their hand up. Lots and lots of people should be putting their hand up. Some too lazy too. In actual fact, you've all heard that term. Kawara Puda Chao Ao Manor. That's the start of the King's Anthem. It means servant of the Lord Buddha. Now normally in conversation, a man would refer to himself as Pom, I. But if you were in front of the king, you wouldn't say Pom or Duchan, right? You'd say servant of the Lord Buddha, i.e. your servant. So the hierarchical nature of Thailand is actually really in the language. Now, the West used to be really hierarchical. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. Please excuse me while I blow my nose. So the West used to be really hierarchical. There used to be a great chain, what they call the great chain of being. God, archangels, angels, the Pope, the archbishops, the king, the royalty, the priests, men underneath men, women under them, slaves, and then animals under them, so on and so on. So we used to be really hierarchical, just like Thailand still is. And it was a little bit of a different tradition. Anyway, let me move on. So whatever happened to the great chain of being? Well, this is a very important thing to understand in terms of understanding Western history. The apocalypse, right? Time has a direction. For Buddhists, not so much. It's this huge circle. If you think 30.6 billion years is a long time for the age of the universe, this is nothing compared to what Buddha talked about in terms of time. It's just this endless circle. But Christian tradition is that history has a direction and it's going towards something, the apocalypse. Right? At the apocalypse, Jesus is going to appear in the sky and the faithful will be gathered up in the rapture and the rest of all the guys who went to Pattaya and lived there will be left behind. So there was always this tradition that the hierarchy would come to an end eventually, right? And that it would be flattened, and you'd be, to use the phrase that Luther really phased, it was like saved by faith alone. You'd be saved by faith alone. So the hierarchy was always going to go. And he thought the apocalypse was coming because obviously the Antichrist was in Rome, the Pope, right? Because he refused to reform the church. So he really thought this was the dawn of the apocalypse. And so he wiped out so much of the hierarchy. The Pope was gone, the archbishops, the bishops, the monks, everything was like gone. But here's the thing. If you go from a hierarchical culture to a flat culture, like to democracy, that is really difficult transition, all right? So you would get what I call apocalyptic periods. In England, they chopped the head off the number one person in the country, right? They killed the king. France, they didn't just limit themselves to the king, right? Thousands and thousands of people trying to go from this hierarchical thing to this flat liberty, equality, fraternity, virginity thing, you know, and it's like really flat. Apocalypse in the USA, getting rid of the ultimate hierarchy, free and slave. USSR, not just politically equal, but also economically equal. Millions and millions of people died. And just as many or more in China, trying to flatten the hierarchy. And then we have a look, well, what are we here? We're in a hierarchical culture here with the Thais. And we see these like threatening apocalyptic type periods, right? When the hierarchy finds one person, one vote indigestible. Yeah? So, you know, Thaksin, you know what, Thaksin came along and he figured, well, it doesn't matter where the votes come from as long as I get the majority of votes. So he really called it the Isan vote. So then you have, it's no great secret, you know, there's different ethnic groups in Thailand. So there's the Bangkok Thais who consider themselves the real Thais, and then there's the Isan Thais who come over from Laos and were allowed to sort of take that part of the country because it was so poor, right? So they learned to live off grasshoppers and stuff. So, but how could they, so with some traditional Bangkok Thais, they would regard the lowest person in the Bangkok ethnic group is above the highest person in the Isan ethnic group, right? That's what I'm saying. Everybody agrees in the hierarchy, but they don't agree necessarily where they are in the hierarchy. So then we had this like, I remember when they were throwing out Shinawat Thaksin, and this interviewer, I think he was BBC, interviewed somebody like Suthep or someone and said, so you're trying to get rid of Thaksin because he's corrupt. And he said, no, because he's too corrupt. Right? Got to have the balance, right? He's too corrupt. I saw an article in the Bangkok Post, was like years ago, 12 years ago or something, and it said, there's more to democracy than winning the majority of votes. And I'm thinking, well, no, apart from the fact that you're not supposed to be corrupt. But in Thailand, it's just allowed to be too corrupt, right? So, this great indigestion between people who think, oh, and I heard another discussion, might have been the same guy, said that democracy should be like this committee of elite meeting and electing the Prime Minister. A very different concept of democracy. So I remember speaking to Dr. Manar, not this time, but another time, and you remember the junta came in. It was very, very tense. Red shirts, yellow shirts, right? And the junta came in and said, that's enough. Now this is actually really lucky, because as soon as apocalyptic periods, well, there's this separate hierarchy called the military. And again, you can go up and down hierarchies in your lifetime. And the military comes in and goes, whoa, that's enough for now. Right? Let's just calm things down. And I expressed to Dr. Manar that people in Thailand were relieved when the junta came in. And he said, yes, I think so too. Because it sort of calmed down this thing. So are we likely to see more, apocalyptic type sort of clashes in this battle of the hierarchy versus one person, one vote? It would seem likely. But of course we are educating Thais. They are learning to speak English, a very flat language compared to the hierarchical Thai language, so that might have its effect. Well done, lasted to now. There's supposed to be. And that's my little talk on understanding Thailand and why it's changed so much so fast. I hope you got something out of it. Q&A. Hope you didn't like it too much because I'm trying to find other people to give the talks.
Over there.
Big Ron.
Yeah.
Don't stamp on any notes while you're standing.
I appreciate your talk. It's pretty enlightening. And is it true that they say that the Thai people do not want us here in Thailand? We feel that every day when you go 7-Eleven, you go someplace like that, it's like you're ignored, you're pushed away, and many things in Thailand like that. So did they not? Somebody said they're prejudiced. Are they prejudiced with us?
Like all hierarchies, when there's very hierarchical society, if you're a foreigner, the default position is to place you under the hierarchy, okay? Because you're a foreigner. It's like in the old, the High Temple in Jerusalem. There'd be like one market for the Gentiles, and then there'd be an area for the women that the Gentiles weren't allowed to go into, and then there'd be an area for the men that the women were allowed to go to, and then there'd be an area for the priests. So it's that sort of thing. Without knowing, you can, even Farangs can work their way up the hierarchy and individual esteem, yes. But the presumption is that you're placed under the lowest Thai, simply because they don't know where else to place you, right? They just really don't know what to make of you. My friend, I had a friend coined the expression, "me love your wallet long time." And sometimes you do get the impression like, well, you should go back to the country but leave your wallet here, right? But obviously with certain women, I mean this in Thailand, just talking about that, basically if you're over the age of 26 or 30, Thai men might look at you. So really the only option for Thai women is foreigners. So they don't necessarily want you to go because they're looking for partners and stuff. So it's very. We've got enough mic bearers. We've only got one mic bearer or something. Roy's going to stand up. Yes, thanks.
Yes, in reference to Little John's question, I've been here 52 years and I have never, ever felt unwanted here.
Thank you for sharing.
Never. In fact, my feelings have been just the opposite. I could stand here and talk for an hour about what I've seen happen in the last 50
Hopefully you'll get up here.
And there's the next speaker.
I will mention one of the big changes. You mentioned birth control, and the main one is the capsule put under the skin, not the prophylactic. And the other big change that happened in this country, and I've watched it happen, is the highway system and the electrical system. I lived in Pattaya 52 years ago, and we had a power plant down the road here that worked part of the time. And then eventually we got on a regular system. Most of that, by the way, was paid for by Uncle Sam, and the highways also.
So part of the key is, in Thailand, smile a lot, nod, and never lose it. Because when you lose your temper, they're not impressed. You've lost face, right? So you look bad. So very important for you not to lose your temper. Occasionally that's meant I've gone, yes, you can steal 500 baht from me. Good, yes. But don't lose it, because you're the one that looks bad.
Ren?
So these girls that go with marry foreigners, have babies with them, whatever, do they lose a lot of their status?
No.
No. Why?
Well, for starters, you're taking sex much more seriously than Thais do, okay? So part of that, that whole thing that the feet are low and this part isn't, is that gives them a much more free and easy idea about sex. That whole sort of residual stuff we've got from Judaic Christianity about like sex is bad, sex is good, they don't have any of that.
Okay.
Bud?
Hi Red, thanks very much for his stimulating talk. The first Farang I've heard say, don't whine.
I've never heard anybody say that before, who was a Farang. And my wife says that it creeps her out when an older Farang wise her, because it's like the Farang is saying inside, "You're older than me." And she says that makes me feel like the Farang wants me to die. So don't do it.
Yeah, don't why. The other thing you should never do is point at ties, right? That goes to a non-Buddhist tradition, the Ramagian, where there's a demon in it. And the demon actually has the power of killing by pointing at people. So the Thai thing is you point at somebody, it's like you want them to die. Yeah, don't do that. You weren't listening. Hi, John.
Hello. I'm John, visiting again from Hawaii. And thank you, Ren, for your stimulating conversation. I got comments on both the things that were questioned. One is about the why Thais might have a little bit of fear from you. It's called xenophobia. And they're not stupid. And they know that only the white man has enslaved, occupied indigenous people in every continent on this planet, with the exception of Antarctica. And Thailand is the only country who has not been occupied by a white foreign power. And part of that has to do, and I take a little bit of pride in this, is the British wanted to occupy Thailand after World War II because the king, thoughtfully so, decided not to have his people killed and allowed the Japan to occupy them. And the Brits wanted to occupy Thailand, and the United States said, no, you will not. The present king of Thailand was born in the United States, and they respected that, and consequently, they still have never been occupied by a white foreign power. They've got no problems with Asians coming into their country. So when you hear Farang, it means foreigner. The other thing about wine, and you can look in the Wikipedia article on it, yes, if you're a foreigner, don't lie first, but it's really considered rude if you meet a business person or somebody else that's Thai and they why you must why back. Yeah. Because it's kind of like in the English way, if somebody were to come up to you and offer their hand and handshake and you refuse that handshake, it would be considered rude. And the Thais also. But again, Ren's perfectly right. Take a little time, read the Wikipedia article on it and understand a little bit more about the process of wine. The last comment on that is, I've heard sometimes years ago. Wait,
we're getting protests from around the room. We'll come back to you if there's time. Okay. I'm going to disagree with him about the why. But if you're going to meet somebody who's like really important, like the king or something, somebody really upper, you should get one of their assistants and say, should I why? And if so, how should I why? If you're going to meet somebody really high up. But for mostly, don't do the why.
Ren, over here.
Reflecting on a point that you raised earlier and responding to one person's question, gave me a thought. The member of the audience mentioned about whether we are welcome or not, and to what extent we're welcomed, and you gave a very interesting answer. And of course, you mentioned, I think, leave your wallet behind. So therefore, we are welcomed to an extent because of the amount of money that we bring, the amount that we spend. That occurred to me. I wanted to try to contrast that, because at the moment in the UK, we have lots of very, very wealthy Russians. However, the general public in England, particularly in London, does not welcome wealthy Russians. I wanted to contrast that with the extent to which Thai people and Thai businesses welcome us. The rich Russians are not welcome in London and the UK, generally speaking, amongst the public. You hear a different political view on the TV. I just wanted to contrast what you were saying. Thank you.
The other thing to say is that we are much more popular than certain other ethnic groups. For instance, they don't like Russians because Russians never smile. And they have real problems with that. They're like, it's like Russians are triggered. They're always going on serious. And they really generally don't like Indians very much, because Indians will do things like haggle about something, agree on a price, the Thai will come down and then they'll walk up and not buy it anyway. And they hate that. So we actually look quite shiny compared, for instance, to Russians and Indians. And other ethnic groups.
Okay, Ren.
Hi there. I read a book a short while ago called Fool in Paradise. I think it was written by an Aussie guy, Ian Hutchinson. And according to him, the hierarchy for Falang is below the fleas on a soy dog.
Well, there you go. I wouldn't put it like that myself. No.
Interesting point the gentleman said at the back there about the British in Thailand, because I've never heard that before, especially after World War II, when the British withdrew from both Burma and India and was only in Thailand under force under Japanese rule. So that's I would question massively.
The other thing to emphasise is that basically, see, a lot of Asian countries had to bow their knee. In a sense, they lost, like the Japanese lost, right? And all these other countries lost, but Thailand never sort of got invaded. So they never really saw their hierarchy, as it were, bend knee to a foreign invader. So they've never had that sort of humbling experience that Japan, for instance, had.
Right, John?
Hi, Ren, thank you. We know that what we say sometimes upsets Thais because we don't understand quite how to behave. But what's your understanding of the that versus that?
I didn't mention this. Yeah, when Thais want you to come to them, they'll do this, right? They won't do this, because this is dirty. This is how you stimulate a woman during sex, right? So don't do this, do this, right? Is that what you were alluding to?
That's a good one.
Yeah, so that's why they do this.
Right.
Aaron, I just maybe take issue with you on the point of the English language being very flat and non-hierarchical. Basically,
I said comparatively.
Okay, it's split into two. The higher language coming through Norman French with lots of Latin and Greek, and then the everyday language coming through the Anglo-Saxon Germanic route. And in fact, if you're talking rough and ready, sometimes using rude words, you should talk about good Anglo-Saxon. An example being a really nasty thing to call somebody using the Anglo-Saxon route is call them a dickhead. If you're using the more higher route, you call them Richard, for Richard Cranium.
And there's all sorts of traditions and accents. I was going to talk about this, but I was worried about time. Remember, English used to be thou, thy, die. And this is actually a flattening of the language that they got rid of this. After the Puritans took over the Parliament and the king had his head chopped off, when they refer to people in royalty or the king, they use a royal plural, and the plural is you, your, ye, right? So they'd say, instead of saying the singular, thee, thou, thine, but that they would refer to the king as you, your, ye, like we are not amused, you. So the Puritans came and said, none of this, we're all the same in God's eyes, saved by faith alone. So they said, we're not going to refer to people above us in the royal plural anymore. And so the decision was made to refer to everybody in the plural and get rid of thee, thou, thy, thine. So that was a major flattening of the language. So there has been, it's not as hierarchical as it used to be in English.
I'm going to go back to the why. My Thai daughter-in-law told me that I should always why anyone who whys me. She said, and she wasn't being rude, she said most of the time you are actually going to be older than them, so they should why you first. I mean, she's quite right, especially if she's talking to Les. I mean,
well, there you go. If you're as old as Judith, why people back?
So that's good people, yeah, why, but always why low. And I queried why she whyed waiters. And she said, no. She said, if we go into a restaurant that I use quite a lot, she said, it's just being polite. And I said, well, surely I don't do the same. And she said, no, if they why you, and it's a place you use, why them back, but it's a low why, and don't bow your head.
Well, that's interesting, because I had this discussion with Alan Riddell about this very same question, and he said, oh no, but surely you go into a restaurant, you widen back, and Pasit, who's a very bright boyfriend, said, no, never do the why. And this discussion we've had actually proves my point. There's all this complexity around that you're likely to get wrong.
Hi, Ren. I'd just like to caution everybody about using the Google translation when you translate to Y, something into Y, because their translation isn't always exactly right. And I've used it a couple times, and the Thais look at me and say, we don't say that anymore. And they'll tell me something different was exactly what was, you know.
Yeah, well, I read Thai, so I use the Google Translate, and I can read the Thai and then change the English to make it say what I wanted to say in the Thai. John, did you want to come back with something? Oh, there's some more here. So, I've got a Thai lady here. Was this a good talk? Ki Ai.
Thanks, Ren, for your interesting topic and your speech. I'm Thai, so I heard a lot
really?
about, yeah, I'm born in Thai. And I just like to clarify about why. I don't want you guys all to scare of why. For me, this day, the kid, why up here, why here? But if we why here, it's just show respect and show that we accept their respect for us and we show our respect to them. That's all we think. We don't have to scare, oh, is he, oh, what hierarchy is there? We got to why up here, why up here. I never consider that for me, myself, as Thai. And I would like you all to understand that most Thai in their mind, they want, oh, why me low, why me high, like that. No, please. It's just show respect, accept respect, that's all. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I didn't think what the why thing would be such a hot topic of conversation, because this is a very highly educated woman who is a doctor who deals with Farangs all the time. She doesn't necessarily see it the same way other. And they're going to come back on the 12th of January, and on 12th of January we're having a talk, 2 talks now, on alternative retirement accommodation options and stuff.
Ren. Well, hi Ren, and just a wee compliment. As the organiser of all the guest spots here, I have to say I enjoyed your guest spot as one of the best we've had here. Just a thank you for your presentation.
I'm thinking of giving a short talk on how not to give a talk. So it'll start off with me talking about my childhood. Okay? You always know there's going to be a problem, right? And they start talking about the childhood. Uh-oh. Because they don't listen to me. I give them all these, and then they don't listen. They go, the worst talkers I've had, the most confident ones, right? It's like I'm trying to give them some tips, and they go, you're talking to a professional now. And I'm going, uh-oh, I'm in trouble.
Please thank Ren for a most enlightening talk on understanding Thailand. Well done. Ren, your carbohydrates and sugar are here on the table.
Another certificate to cover up another damp patch.